Whoa, boogers almost just like plopped out of
I don't think I've had a moment in my life where I've wanted to drop to my knees and scream to the sky.
I feel that way every day on the train.
You feel that why? Because you're just like
The second someone goes, showtime, showtime, you're like, nah, nah.
Hey guys, it's Duan, and this vlog is going to be an interview
on me, I guess.
I wanted to interview him on his photography because I think it's very, very inspiring, and I wanted you guys to hear about it and know about it and look at it. Go look at it.
Go look at it. Yeah, let's take it away.
Okay, come along. Look at this camera. This is the more personal. So what is your name?
I'm Cole. I was sad and in a dark place, and I turned to a hobby to sort of take me out of that, and I found photography. And I've been doing photography for a while, but I had really used it as an outlet, as a way to create and feel better, and it took off. Most of my work took place in the landscape, and there was something profoundly serene about those landscapes, and I had sort of used those adventures as an attempt to separate from not just the virtual world, but from a world that I felt paranoid was watching me quite a bit. And so in my early work, that's, you know, and still, that runs as probably the primary undercurrent in most of the work that I do. I am the worst critic of myself, so I look at a lot of that early stuff and see nothing but dissatisfaction in the stuff that I do. So I just constantly want to create and grow and eventually feel comfortable with the stuff I'm doing.
You don't feel comfortable right now?
Well, not in front of you. Not in this park.
What do you mean? It's so nice.
Yeah, it's so pretty.
Yeah.
No, it's yeah, I have a really hard time looking at the stuff that I create and feeling okay with it. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm not really good with self-criticism. I'm consistently looking at the work that I've done in the past or the work I'm doing now and feeling like, I could do better.
Yeah.
So I try to create as many opportunities for myself to do photography as an attempt to placate some side of myself that needs to grow.
I love that. It's good that you've noticed that and you can see it from that.
I think there's a hawk up there.
Wait, really?
Yeah, on that pole. Can you see it?
Oh my.
Huh?
Yeah?
There's a hawk.
Craig's our lookout.
Right here?
Hey, baby. I think the only practical advice I wish I would have received was go to your antique store, your local antique store, or go anywhere you can buy the shittiest like Hello Kitty camera that you can find and get a good lens for the worst camera and just start shooting. And that's it. And take it everywhere. And your camera will end up conditioning your eye better than any piece of advice could, you know, because the good photography is a conversation between the tool and the user. And I think if you have yourself a camera that no one else is using and it's conditioning you in its own way, you have already given yourself a tremendous leg up in the currency of photography, which is making your work look original and making your work look entirely unique. You know, the goal is, if your photograph was thrown into a stack of thousands of other photographs, that some student could be working through it and go, that's his work. You know, and if you've gained that currency, you've made it. That's it. You know, if people can look at the stuff that you're doing, and this doesn't just go for photography, it goes for acting, it goes for anything, any art form. If they can look at the work you're doing and go, yeah, I know that's blank, then you've made it. I've started recently looking at a lot of my photographic idols, people like McGinley, younger photographers really. And I've started looking at the work they take with clients, not the stream of consciousness stuff, not their personal pursuits. In other words, the way they stay afloat through actual commercial photography. And I've started looking at that lineage because that interests me way more now than the stuff that's entirely them. I think it's
Really?
I think it's much more interesting to see how their vision is exercised within a rule set.
And like under pressure and everything.
Under pressure.
Yeah.
Because that's also a place that I'm at currently. and trying to figure out how to keep aesthetic continuity while obeying some kind of greater business interests. And it's interesting seeing the stuff they take. If anyone watching is interested in photography, they have a certain photographer that they love, I recommend looking at the stuff they have to do to keep the bread on the table.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
What was your first job? Like someone hired you?
Photographic. I was Traveler magazine. I walked into Condé Nast one day, not really knowing anything, was like, hey, can I work here? And they were like, well, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm gonna take a train trip from the West Coast to the East Coast and I'll document the whole thing and then I can just sell it to you guys or something.
Yeah.
And they said, sure, but we're not gonna pay you for it. So I was like, okay, I think they did actually. I think they did pay me. It was a little online story, which was nice. The first print job I had was for Traveler. I was asked to go to Botswana and document an elephant sanctuary.
So you think that they loved your work so much for that they rehired you?
Well, I hope.
Yeah. But that's amazing. Are you kidding me? Like,
That was great.
look at that like little snowball effect that.
Yeah, I didn't really understand how it worked, asking for work and whatnot, so I just sort of went in with like a button-up shirt on and was like, hey.
With your hair like slicked back.
Yeah. Full of like Wolfman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and from there it kind of snowballed, and I was living in New York, so the fashion editorial world was much more prevalent than something like travel or lifestyle or documentary photography. And I got swept up into that with the group of friends I was hanging with, who were also a bunch of young photographers. And then it just sort of picked up from there. I ended up getting an agent last year, got signed with LGA. And from there, I just continued doing the fashion editorial stuff. I couldn't really escape how I had started in photography, which was so travel intensive, that now even when I shoot, it's an excuse for me to go into the landscape and I'll just drag some people on a little adventure. It's fun.
How do you know where to go? Where do you go? You just like...
I scout all the time. Jump in my car and I just drive around, or I travel as much as I can. But you know when a place is cinematically beautiful the second you step in it. And I find that most often when I travel to the landscape. I have a really hard time shooting in cities and urban areas because I don't feel inspired.
But that's good though. You're just finding your style more.
Right. I took a hard stance against nudity too. The industry, especially photography, is just now it's now being talked about much more than it was in the past, but it's a very sexually predatory industry. And the life of a model is often one with a bad story to tell about that exact nature. Oh my gosh.
Oh my.
So cute. I mean, the oldest rule in publicity is that sex sells. It's really easy to take a beautiful person and rely on the beauty of that person's form to sell the image.
Yeah.
I don't really think it's new to have like a straight white man shooting beautiful nude imagery. It's not original and it's not interesting. There's not much left for that conversation. And so I never really took an interest in it.
What cameras do you use?
I don't talk about my cameras, actually, just because people rely on that bit of
camera.
information, like...
And they think that they'll be able to create
I use digital and film. Film, I do both 35 and medium format. But we rely so heavily on the conversation of cameras because photography is often seen as a game of big guns. People think that to take the most crisp, most quality image means that you're a good photographer. And that's oftentimes not the case. My first cameras, I'll talk about those. My first film camera was the Canon 8U1. It's like the student's camera, super cheap. And my first digital camera was the Canon Rebel T2i. I think it was Costco. It was part of a deal.
The bundle.
The bundle. And it was the noisiest, grainiest camera around. I still shot with it and it completely directed the cameras I chose next, which is why it's important to get a low quality camera when you first start out. It conditions you completely.
Is there anything else that you would like to leave off with to my audience? Anything that's like positive or...
Positive? I don't do that. That's not my brand.
Oh, jeez.
My brand's not happy. My brand's cynical. I was SpongeBob back in the day, and now I'm Squidward.
Oh, jeez.
Just shoot all the time. You know, carry a camera around with you all the time. Shoot your friends. Get disposable cameras. They're really awesome. We're in an age now where the virtual world and the virtual personas that we've built for ourselves give us a tremendous kind of detachment from the real world. And as a society, we find ourselves much more in touch with a kind of older golden age of practical professional photography that required skill and timing and so on and so forth. And I think for me, find a way to bring that yearning for nostalgia into your work. And if you manage to resonate with people and your work through that nostalgia and through that semblance of professionalism, you've done yourself and your audience a real service. People are very hungry for a body of work that reminds them of a time that is past right now. That's what I like to sell. That's how I feel. That's why I'm constantly going into the woods and returning to these natural cathedrals or these places that are detached from the trappings of a more urban, more modern global society. And so if people can end up finding joy with that work, with the same thing that makes you feel at peace, then keep doing it, you know. But shoot all the time, all the time. Constantly carry a camera around with you. That's what I do.
Where's your camera right now?
In my ass.
Oh, God.
Carry it where you feel most comfortable.
Well, I applaud you on how far that you've come.
Thanks, dude.
But seriously, though, are you kidding me? Like, when you lived here in Williamsburg and, like, we would just go, like, random places and you would get tickets and stuff. Because you were just like, I want to just shoot here, or, like, let's go over here.
Yeah.
Let's cross this.
I think if I'm given one more ticket for trespassing in New York, I will actually be arrested.
Oh, God. And now, just seeing how you've grown into such a great photographer, I feel.
Thank you. I had a very flattering compliment the other day from a student who had said their professor, I think it was Pratt, was showcasing the work I was doing and teaching the work I was doing, which was the most flattering thing that I could have heard.
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, photography's always been such a personal therapy that I never really imagined it would turn into something that other people would feel that similar kind of therapy for. And
how wonderful is that? That must be like the biggest pat on your back every single day.
it feels good.
You need to remind yourself that and be like, wow, like,
I know.
I did this on my own. And it's straight like art that you are shooting.
Thank you.
Like you're the one that like points the camera and knows what to shoot and what your frame is going to be. Going around and looking at the places you want to shoot, like it's all your eye, it's all your work, and you need to.
Yeah, I can never do that though. I like I mentioned, I have such a hard time looking at the stuff I do and taking joy out of it. I think as long as I continue to just be present in those moments, I'll feel good about the work and look back on the work and feel proud of it.
Well, I'm proud of you. I love you. I think you're wonderful. You're good. You're a good guy. I hope that you enjoyed this. I love you, and I'll see you next week. I'm so sweaty. Oh gosh.